Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Pesachim Daf Pei Vav is the last Daf in the 7th parak of Maseches Pesachim, parak Ketzad Tzaylin. The Gemara discusses a statement from Rav that is seemingly unrelated to everything we've discussed so far. The Gemara is going to have 5 kashas on the statement, the last of which will be from our Mishnah, and that's the connection here. And then we'll get to the next and last Mishnah in parak Ketzad Tzaylin. So first of all, Rav says as follows. Rav says that the roofs of any particular zone of Kedusha, the roofs and the attics of any buildings in a zone of Kedusha don't have the status of that Kedusha. So therefore, the rooftops of houses and the attics of houses in Yerushalayim don't have the status of Yerushalayim, and therefore you couldn't eat the Korban Pesach there. And the roofs and the attics of the offices, the lishkos in the Azara, the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, don't have the status of the Azara, and you could not eat kachim within the Azara. So now the Gemara is going to have 5 questions here. First of all, I have a brayso that says that when the Korban Pesach was eaten, the halal that was said was sometimes so loud because each person that was signed up to the Korban only needed to get one concise. You could have so many people signed up that there would be so many people in the room that the halal would be so loud that it would break the roof. That implies that they were actually standing on the roof when they said the halal. If they were standing on the roof, that means they were eating the Korban Pesach on the roof. How could they eat it on the roof if the roof didn't have Kedusha? You have to eat the Korban in Yerushalayim. Must be that the roof had Kedusha as Yerushalayim. The Gemara says no, they didn't eat it on the roof. They ate it in the house, and then they went up to the roof to say hello. The Gemara says that can't be, but we have a Mishnah that says and you're not allowed to leave the place where Chabura is. We don't let you leave because we're afraid if we let you leave, you'll take some korban meat with you, and then it's that's usher. It's an isser deraisa to do that, and it becomes a psul of yaitse. So you're not allowed to leave. So obviously they had to say halal in the same room in which they actually ate it. So says no, they're not allowed to leave during eating, but you're allowed to leave once eating is over. They're allowed to leave and go somewhere else to say halal, and they all went up to the roof and they said halal. Okay, that's the Gemara's first proof. Now the Gemara tries to bring another proof here. The Gemara quotes a statement of Abba Shaul that says that the attic of the Kodesh HaKadoshim had a higher level of Kedusha than the Kodesh HaKadoshim himself. The Kodesh HaKadoshim was entered once a year by the Kohanim and Kippur to do the special Avodah. But the attic above the Kodesh HaKadoshim was entered only once every 7 years, or possibly once every 50 years, and even then, only so that workers could check that it was doing well and it didn't need fixing, any repairs that it needed was done. So you see that there is Kedusha in the attic of the Kodesh Kodashim. So how could you say there's no Kedusha in attics or in roofs? So Gemara says that's not a kasha. You can't ask from the Kodesh HaKadoshim, from the building of the Beis HaMikdash. That was specifically given with its own halachas. We weren't referring to that when we talked about roofs and attics. And the reason it has its own halachas is like we see that the pasuk says Vayitain David l'shlemi b'nai estavnes ha'ulam ve'ez beisa ve'ez ginzachav v'aliyayisa v'chadav v'apnimim u'beisa kapoires. And it also says Akol b'ksav miyad Hashem alay hiskel, that the David HaMelech was given the design for all parts of the structure of the Heichal, the building of the Beis HaMikdash. He gave that over to Shlomo and was all given to him originally by Hashem, the specific design. So it has its own rules. You can't prove anything from that. Okay, now the Gemara has a couple more proofs here. By way of introduction, we need to keep in mind the shape of the Harabayis and the Beis HaMikdash, namely the Azar and the Heichal. So the Harabayis was a mountain. The mountain was squared off. That means it had walls and it had a flat top. And then within it, the Azar was another square that was placed upon it. And there were 15 steps that went up from the Harabayis surface to the Azara surface. The Azara was a good 7.5 amos higher than the Harabayis itself, and then within the Azar you had the building of the Heichal, which stood itself high. In there you had the front of it was the Ulam, and inside you had Heichal was the Kodesh, and you had the Kodesh HaKadoshim in that as well. Now there were lishkos. Lishkos are rooms. So there were storage rooms of all types and sizes. Some of them were offices, some of them were storage rooms, all around the Azara. And some of them could have been in the Azara and opened into Harabayis, and some of them could have been in Harabayis and opened into the Azara. So we have a brayso here that says as follows: any lishka which is built in one area and opens into a different area, so the inside of the lishka has the halacha of the area that it opens into. The top of the lishka, the roof of it, has the halacha of the area in which it's built. So the brayso first says like this: if you have a lishka which is built in a kodesh area, let's say it's built in the Azara, and it opens into Harabayis, which is beneath it, as we said, so then its inner surface, its inner floor, opens into Harabayis, has the halacha of Harabayis, even though it's sitting in the Azara itself. Its roof, since it's in the Azara, has a kedusha Azara. So you see the roof has Kedusha. Gemara says, no, that's different. That's because that roof was on the surface level of the Azara. Meaning it was built into the Azara itself. It opened, its floor level opened into the Harabayis. Its rooftop was on the level of the Azara, that's why it has Kedusha's Azara. But Stama roof doesn't have Kedusha of the area in which it is found. Gemara says, well, that can't be. Because look at the second half of the Brisa, and says that if you have a lishka which is built in the Harabayis, it opens into the Azara. So again, its roof has the halacha of the Harabayis, and its floor has the halacha of the Azara, has the Kedusha's Azara. Now, it could be that it's in Harabayis and opens into the Azara. It would have to have a set of stairs going up to the Azara, but it could open directly into there. But if it's below the surface level of the Azara, that means it has the halacha of the tunnels under the Azara. We know there was a series of tunnels under the Azara. Kahanim who became Tameh used to use that to escape quickly out of the Beis HaMikdash. They weren't allowed to walk across the Azara because they were Tameh, but they could escape through those tunnels. In fact, Rabbi Yochanan said those tunnels didn't have Kedusha. They were considered to be already outside the Beis HaMikdash. Now, if the tunnels are outside the Beis HaMikdash, this lishka that you're describing, which is below the surface level of the Azara, should also have the halacha of the tunnels and not have Kedusha. Yet it says that if it opens directly into the Azara, which would again be via a staircase, it does have Kedusha. So that would be contradictory to what Rav Yochanan said about those tunnels that they don't have Kedusha. Obviously, we're not talking about where its roof was on surface level of the Azara. We're talking about where it's above level. We're back to our original question. Why in the first half of the Brisa does the roof have Kedusha? Roofs aren't supposed to have Kedusha according to the statement of Rav. Gemara says that's not an issue. Rav Yochanan said that the tunnels have Kedusha. He was talking about that Rav Yochanan said that the tunnels don't have Kedusha. He was talking about that the tunnels that open into Harabayis, they only have the Kedusha of Harabayis. They don't have the Kedusha of Hazar. And the reason for that is because Kohanim need to use it to escape. So the Gemara said, but there's a statement of Rav Yochanan. He refers to the tunnels that are under the Heichal itself. Kohanim who were in the Heichal became Tamei. They would go down into the tunnels immediately. Now, if it's in the Heichal, that's a building in the Azara. Most likely, it opens into the Azara. Of course, says no. It's talking about tunnels which open into the Harabayis. You can get into it from the Heichal, and then it goes under the Azara and opens into Harabayis, so that the Kohanim could get out without having to cross a Kadosh area while they were Tamei. They could just go out into the Harabayis. Okay. Now the Gemara goes to its next proof on the subject, which is a simple brisa that says that the roof of the Heichal was Kodesh. This is not like what we said earlier. Earlier we had said two proofs ago that the attic of the Kodesh Kedoshim was Kodesh. The roof of the Kodesh of the Heichal we didn't say. And we can't use the answer we said before that the building has different halachas because it was given from Hashem to David to Shlomo, because those psukim don't say anything about the roof. So you can't tell me that about the roof. So the Gemara says, well, one second. You have a brisa that tells me that the roof of the Heichal has Kedusha. It can't be, because I have a different brisa that says that you could not do things which you needed to do in the Azara. You could not do them on the roof. You couldn't shecht kodesh kalim, which you allow shachani in the Azara, and you couldn't eat kachi kachim, which you have to eat in the Azara. So obviously it doesn't have Kedusha. So the Gemara says, well then what does it mean when it says that it has Kedusha? The Gemara means it has a middle level of Kedusha. It has a level of Kedusha to be used for tools and things that are needed for the building and structure of the Beis HaMikdash. Things that are Mizbeach items, like Korbanos, it doesn't have that level of Kedusha. And the Gemara says, I'll give you an example of a type of tool like that. There was the eastern gate of Harabayis had an inscription of Shushan Abira above it. It had an image of Shushan on it. This is again in the second Beis HaMikdash to remind people about where they came from. Now that building that had Shushan on it had stored in it had two measuring sticks. The measuring sticks were supposed to represent an amma, but one was a half finger width longer than the amma used by Moshe Rabbeinu, and one was a half finger width longer than that, so it was a full finger width. And these are tools, and these were kept there. So this is why the Gemara is bringing this to show that there were places that had Kedusha to keep the tools used for the structure, the building of the Beis HaMikdash, but not for Karbanos. Now the Gemara goes more into details. The Gemara says, where were these tools kept? One was in the northeast corner, one was in the southeast corner. It says, why were they larger than those of Moshe Rabbeinu? So the Gemara says that the workers, when they took materials from the Beis HaMikdash storehouse, they took with the measurements of Moshe Rabbeinu. When they gave it back, they measured how much they owed back. They used a larger size measure. That way they'd be giving back more. They would give some of their own. And the reason that they want to give back more is to make sure that if they didn't measure exact and end up keeping some of the Beis HaMikdash materials, which would be Me'ilah. So the Gemara says, well, why did they need two, one half a finger larger than Moshe's measure and one a whole finger. Gemara says, well, the half finger one was used for gold and silver, which is very expensive, and we didn't want to charge the workers too much, and the other one was used for other building materials, which was less expensive, and we could afford a bigger overlap that they gave from their own. Okay, the Gemara now goes to its last ayah, which comes from our Mishnah itself. Our Mishnah had said that the thickness of the wall of Yerushalayim counted as the inside of the city, and you could eat the carbon there, and the thickness of the windows counted as inside as well. So the Gemara says the windows, the thickness of the windows, I'm not bothered by the fact that we say that they have kedusha. That could be referring to where the window was on floor level, but the top of the wall can't be floor level. So according to Rav's statement that the roofs don't have kedusha, how does the top of the wall have kedusha? Moses is talking about the wall that was inside another wall. You had sometimes a wall inside another wall, and the wall was on floor level of an inner surface, just like the Azara was higher than the Arabais. It could have had a wall around it that would be on the surface level of the Azara itself, and therefore it is considered to be surface level, and it's not a problem, even though it's a wall, that it has kedusha. The Mishnah takes one side of the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. The machlokes is over two subjects, both about what happens with one carbon pesach that is being eaten in two places. The two subjects are as follows: can one carbon be eaten by two chaburas, each one in its own place? And can one pesach be eaten by one person in two places? Meaning, can the Pesach be, first of all, can it be split by two chaburas each in their own place? Like a one person, not two chaburas, just one person or one chabura, can they eat it in one place and continue eating it somewhere else? So the two opinions of Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon say one yes, one no, and they take opposite sides as to which one yes and which one not. Rabbi Yehuda says two chaburas could eat one carbon. They don't have to be in the same place. They could each have their own carbon, their own part of the carbon. They do not have to join together. However, no one person can eat a carbon in one place and then continue eating somewhere else. It can't be part of one chabur and then go to another chabur. It can't be in one place and then go to another place. He's got to eat it in one place. Rabbi Shimon says the opposite. Rabbi Shimon says one person can eat a chabur here. He can eat from the carbon here. He can eat from the carbon there. But you can't have two chaburas that are separately eating from the same carbon. Only one chabura per carbon. Now, what's the source of their machlokas? So it's from the psukim that say as follows. One says, Al habatim asher yoichlu oisei bahem, the houses that they, plural, will eat it in them. So Rabbi Yehuda says, here you have plural people eating, so you have two chaburas, and they're eating one carbon, bohem, in plural houses. So you could have two different chaburas, each in their own place, eating from a carbon. Rabbi Shimon says no, this is referring to each individual. And it says asher yoichlu, they are eating, it's referring to each individual which is eating, and they're eating it in two places. They're eating it al batim bahem. They're eating it in one. He's starting off here and finishing there. Now, as far as the other issue, the aspect which is forbidden, so on that we have a different pasuk that says babayas echad ye'achel. Rabbi Yehuda learns that's saying that one person can't go to two places, and Rabbi Shimon says no, that's not what that's involved about at all. It's referring to something else entirely. Now, what's the machlokes about as far as how you read the pasuk of Ala Batam Shayechlu Esay Bahem? Whether do you follow the strict meaning of the pasuk or do you go with a Messiah? Okay, so that's what their machlokes is. The Gemara emphasizes that according to Rabbi Yehuda, what happens if, let's say, a server takes a bite out of a carbon pesach while he's standing near the oven? So according to Rabbi Yehuda, he can't go somewhere else to finish eating. So he's got to finish eating it right there, standing where he is. And if the rest of his chabur will be nice, they'll come join him and eat it with him where he is. But he can't go then join someplace else. So now the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, and it holds that the two chaburas can eat the same carbon. They don't have to join together, and it says they can sit in one house and they don't have to look at each other. They can turn their faces away from each other. They can face in opposite directions, have their backs to each other even. And the idea is that they could look like two chaburas. You don't have to have them join as one. According to Rabbi Shimon, you would have to have them join as one because you can't have two chaburas eating from one carbon. You could even, says the Mishnah, you could even have a kli that they're using be between them. They can all conveniently reach it and it separates them and that's fine. However, a server who gets it from one chabura, wants to serve the other chabura, can't eat facing them, because then it looks like he went and he ate together with them. He's not allowed to do that. He started with the first chabura, he can't go to the other chabura. He can only eat facing his chabura. The Mishnah adds a line at the end, a kala can turn away and eat facing a different direction. Okay, so the Gemara brings the Machlokes of Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon and spells out that this Mishnah has to be referring to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Now, the Gemara says, what happens if a wall between two groups of people is added or removed while they're eating? So it says as follows. If there was a group of people sitting together and then a wall got strung up between them, so what happened? You turned one chabura into two chaburas. But nobody changed places. Everybody's in the place they were until now. They haven't become part of a different place all of a sudden. Everybody's in their same place. Now it's two chaburas. So according to Rabbi Shimon, now you have two chaburas. You have a problem here. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's fine. Now, what happens if the opposite happens? You have two groups eating with a wall between them, and then the wall disappears. So now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's a problem. According to Rabbi Shimon, it's fine. Why? Because you do not have two chaburas now, so it's no problem according to anybody as far as that's concerned. But what happens is that you're now considered to be eating in two places. You're in the place you were originally, and you're also in the other place that was previously blocked by the wall, but now the wall's gone, so you're considered to be in that place as well. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, everybody is considered to have moved to a different place, because now they're in a bigger place than they were before. And therefore you would have a problem, you wouldn't be able to continue that way. Now, the Gemara says that this was quoted by Rav Kahana as a simple halacha. This is how it would work out according to each. Rav Ashi says this was a shaila that was asked, we don't know exactly how they would each paskin, and it is left as a teiku. The Gemara now comments on the last line in the Mishnah that a kala turns away and looks at a different direction when she eats. So Gemara says, why would a kala do that? The Gemara says she's embarrassed, she doesn't want the men to be seeing her when she's eating. Okay, now the Gemara brings two incidents here. The Gemara says that Rav Huna Breder of Nosson went to the house of Nachman bar Yitzchak, and when he arrived, he did a few things that they thought were strange, and they all seemed to show him as being a balgaiva of some sort, and they asked him for an explanation, and he explained. So what did they do? First of all, they asked him his name. He said, my name is Rav Huna. That's how he introduced himself, as Rav Huna. They said to him, sit on the couch. So he sat on the couch. Usually, a humble person should sit on a chair or on the bench or on the floor, not on the couch. They offered him a cup of wine. He accepted it right away. Usually, a sign of humility would be to first refuse, and then when they insist, to accept it. He drank it. He drank it in 2 gulps, not in 1, which is somewhat of a high-class thing to do. And when he drank, he didn't turn away. He drank with them staring straight at him. So they said to him, these are all strange things. Why did you do all these things? First of all, why did you call yourself Rav Huna? So he said, that's my name. I've always been called Rav Huna. Not as Rabbi Huna, but Rav has been always my name. They asked, why did you sit on the couch, not on the floor on the bench? He said, well, you told me to sit on the couch. And the Chazal say, always do what your host says you should do. Okay, why did you accept the cup right away and not first refuse? So he said the halacha is misarvin lekatan and misarvin legadol. When you're being offered something by a great person, you don't refuse. You do it right away. Only when it's a less important person do you initially refuse. And so we find that the malachim refused light initially, but they didn't refuse Avram. Now, why did you drink it in 2 gulps? So he said, well, there's a brayso that says somebody who drinks a whole cup in 1 gulp is a glutton. Somebody drinks in 2 gulps is the right way to do it. Somebody drinks in 3 gulps is too high class. He holds too highly of himself. Zimmer says, why don't you turn your face away? So he said, well, the Mishnah says that a kala turns her face away, and this is a connection to here. It doesn't say that a man turns his face away. Okay, second incident is that Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yosi, went to the house of Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yosi ben Lakunya. They gave him a cup to drink. He accepted it right away, and he drank it in 1 gulp. So they said, don't you hold it? The halacha is he's supposed to drink it in 2 gulps. Drink in 1 gulp, he's called a glutton. So he said, that's not talking about a situation like this. You have a very small cup, and your wine is very sweet, and my stomach is very big. So all these things combine that I should drink it in 1 gulp. Okay. On the subject, we discussed the proper manners of a group of people that are coming to eat and how they should be fair to the waiter. When should they make him serve them individually, or when does he only have to work if they're all there? So it says that he only has to start when 3 at least have arrived. If when they arrive one at a time, he doesn't have to start serving until there's 3 of them. However, when they leave, they could leave one at a time, and even if there's only 1 or 2 left, he should still serve them. The Gemara says that's only if they're leaving in a normal fashion. That means that they're leaving at a time when people normally do, and they're staying at a time that people normally do. Also, you should warn him in advance that they're planning on leaving at different times, and he's going to have to serve 1. And Ravina says they also need to pay him, and the one who stays later should pay him more. The Gemara says, but the halacha is not.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.